薄いんですよ、4ミリぐらいで。もうふわふわしてて、でこのふわふわを止めたりとかしたりしてます。もう全部向こうも既存さんは今回は使うことになったんですけど、もう張り替えなきゃいけない。
本来ならね、
ただもう本来とは違う工事をたくさんしてきてるんで、もういっぱい壊してるでしょ。だからもうどっかで止めなきゃいけないから、ここで止めさせてもらったって感じ。
なる
でも本当はダメだよ。こんなのクロスきれいに仕上がらないよ。
ほど。確かにね。
ここ見てみよう。もう燃えとるのよ。
By this point, the renovation had already gone over the original schedule by more than 10 days. Even if I wanted to rebuild the wall, we just couldn't afford any more extra work. It was a necessary decision, but it's one that would later come with big regrets. Originally, we planned to keep the closet and just swap the doors and change the flooring from tatami to hardwood. But right before the work started, we discovered termite damage. So we had to revise the work, scope, and construction schedule. This ceiling only had one furring strip as backing, so I wasn't confident in just layering plywood and wallpapering over it as planned. Even if it looked fine now, I expected issues to show up in a few years, so I decided to rebuild the ceiling from scratch. As we started demolition, we ran into the usual problem with steel frame structures. Partial removal is difficult. In the end, we decided to rebuild the closest storage space from the ground up too. When unexpected things happen, especially in renovations, the final outcome really depends on who's doing the work. Once you've made a decision, you just have to believe it's the best and move forward. If this had been a traditional wooden house with posts and beams, we probably could have just added onto the existing structure. In that case, we might not have needed to tear down so much. The girders and sill plates had been damaged by termites. I struggled with the decision of how much of the girder to replace. The sill plate had dropped, and the floor joists in the adjacent room were floating. We really hoped to limit the repairs to just this one room. We used spacers and foundation pads to lift the sill plate and managed to secure it in place. Next, we cut out only the termite damaged section and spliced the girder. Ideally, we would have removed all the girders and replaced everything from the pier blocks up. But I judged that this repair would still give us a solid floor. The restoration of the sill plate and girders is now complete. And now we've got the trying to fix it made it worse problem.
It's ちょっときついな、やっぱり。6ミリはちょっと偉いな。
The floor had sunk badly in some spots, so I adjusted the height of the joist supports. And that still wasn't the end of the floor repairs. The sill plate near the entryway was totally rotten from termite damage. If we forcibly broke the sill plate, it might crack the tiles on the opposite side by the entrance, so we proceeded with extra caution. There were signs that someone had renovated this area before, but for some reason, they left it half finished. As a result, someone else had to come fix it again, and that burden ends up falling on the homeowner. We finished by using metal adjustable posts to level the entire floor. Termite treatment had already been done throughout the house, but we also treated this area again just to be sure. We repaired the subfloor and reinstalled the original floor panels, and now it feels solid underfoot. With the demolition and subfloor repairs done, we could finally start working on the interior underlayment. We placed the floor joists while inserting precisely cut styrofoam boards between them. This forms the base for the flooring that will go on top. We spaced the joists at 1 shaku intervals, lining them up neatly and screwing them into the existing subfloor. The joists and insulation are now in place. Next, we lay down the base plywood over the floor. Actually, I had cut the plywood wrong at first, so I had to redo it here. Now the plywood subfloor is finished. Next up is installing the flooring itself. This is what's called engineered flooring. It's made by layering a printed wood grain sheet over plywood. There weren't many tricky cuts, so we were able to finish laying the flooring in just one day. We covered the floor to protect it and moved on to the next phase. We've got ourselves a ceiling height is too low problem. The distance from the bolt under the beam to the floor is 2,380 millimeters. I'm worried whether a full height door frame will actually fit.
2ミリ低い。高い。やば。
And now, the no backing in the existing wall problem. This house doesn't have vertical wooden framing like posts or studs found in traditional wooden construction. So, attaching the ceiling support members, called Nobuchi Yuke, to the wall isn't easy. we assembled the ceiling framework using a bit of ingenuity. Sometimes there's no clear, right answer. You just have to figure it out yourself. Since the ceiling needed to perfectly align with the doors, we had to get the ceiling level spot on. It ended up taking the entire day just to build the ceiling framing. Next, we installed the gypsum boards on the ceiling. We split the work between one person cutting and one person installing. Yesterday, the ceiling framing took all day, but today, the drywalling went surprisingly fast. This wall is inside a closet, so the client said the thin plywood was fine. But the wall was too flimsy and wouldn't support shelving well, so we decided to reinforce it.
ね、通ったやろ。
We checked the wall alignment with a string line and used spacers to even out any bumps.
2ミリ。こっちも2ミリ。
Since this wall will be hidden by storage, we kept it simple to avoid spending too much time and effort. We started framing around the closet opening and the door, but then messed up.
あれ押すの間違えとんのこれ。
わざとですか？
わざとじゃない。
And so began the Did Kazu Mess Up on Purpose conspiracy. I mean, anyone can make mistakes. But the rumor that I did it on purpose still hasn't been cleared. Anyway, next we're attaching a door frame directly to the ceiling.
限界まで起こしてる。
Even though I calculated the height and width for the opening, the frame wouldn't go in.
2545。2545は
325じゃん。
空いてるもん。
The pre-made door frame is 3 millimeters too big problem. Looking back, I realized just how many things we've had to deal with along the way. Final episode. We're finally at the finishing stage, now installing the baseboards and crown moldings.
"仕事するときにお尻を地面につけるでしょ。よくコメントで怒られてるんですよ。
たまにね。
曲げてるとね、ちょっとね、痛くなっちゃうから。
Near the end of the project, my knee really started acting up. Once it starts hurting, it doesn't go away for a while. Lately, baseboards made by Japanese manufacturers have gotten so thin and flimsy. This time though, that thin baseboard actually helped, since it bent easily and followed the curve of the wall. There's something called a corner cap that fits over inside and outside corners of baseboards. By using corner cups, you don't have to miter the baseboards. Anyone can install them easily. Nowadays, manufacturers are coming up with clever materials to address labor shortages and tighter construction schedules. But the downside is, craftsmanship is no longer required. Looking at the long term, that raises concerns about the future of the building industry. Next, we install the Mawariko, the ceiling trim molding.
久しぶりの回り子だな。
These days, not many people use it anymore. But since the existing wall was thin and felt kind of unstable, I decided to add the trim, partly to press it in place and partly to give it a clean finished edge. Mawariko gives a strong framed look, so some people love it and others don't. When it comes to installing ceiling molding, having two people makes the job way easier. We're getting close to the finish line. The room's really starting to take shape. The baseboards and ceiling molding are now fully installed.
はい、今日はですね、フリー板をカットして棚を作っていきます。
This is a laminated board made from Mercus pine. It's a type of engineered wood made by gluing together small wood pieces. It's hard to get solid wood in long lengths, but with these boards, even a 4-meter piece is reasonably priced. Since it's easy to work with, it's now used not just for shelving, but also for trim and framing. After a test fit, thanks to the added wall framing, the inside of the closet is now perfectly square. In renovations, floors aren't always level, so we use the laser to mark a level reference line for the shelf rail. We're using leftover laminated board to make the support pieces for the shelf rail. Since the board is finger jointed, cutting it too narrow weakens its strength. So, typically, for support parts like this, solid wood is preferred over engineered wood. But this time, to keep the look consistent and cost down, we chose to use the same material for everything. We gave the surface a quick pass with a finishing sander, but since it lacks power, we switched to an orbital sander to save time. All the work on this site has been done almost entirely with cordless tools. We really do live in a convenient era. We're now attaching the shelf rail supports. This thin engineered wood will crack without pre-drilling, so you can't just screw into it directly. Since the shelf board is pretty large, there's a good chance it will snag the wallpaper. So, we're installing it ahead of time.
聞いた。ミスが聞くと嬉しいよな、なんか。お客さん喜んでくれるか
ね。
飛び入れてないよね。
The laminated shelf board fit in perfectly without any issues.
でかいね。
Now, we're test fitting the sliding door unit.
はい、じゃあ生徒ゆっくりしていこう。はい、ここはまりましたね。位置合わせて。ここ。はい。これ入った後言っちゃう。
This closet is 2,700 millimeters wide, so the shelf rail could sag from lack of support. So we'll add a partition wall in the middle, right where two of the three sliding doors meet on one side.
これとこれやな。よいしょ。これは大事だよね。この前面もする。ちょっとでも大きいと上がるし。
Now the shelf rail is in place inside the
後日
closet.
金具止めしますね。じゃあ。
Originally, this window had traditional shoji screens since it was a Japanese-style room. We are keeping the existing window frame, but since it had some scratches and cracks, we sanded it smooth.
船の隙間がさ、ちょっと気になったから。ないわ。
これこの後どうするんですか？
ペンキ、木目生かすタイプじゃなくて、もう塗りつぶしのペンキで、
あ、ベタっと。
ちょうどインプラス作るでしょ、ここに。
めっちゃ濃い茶色やね。
そう、このままだとちょっとね、張り合えないかなと思って、綺麗に塗ってあげようかなと思ってます。
はーい。
255の艶消し。こっちの方がかっこいい色してるんや。こっちは既存のモカの色に合うんだけど、黄色が強い。
黄色いね。
うん
ああ、全然違うね、こうやって見ると。
もう255の一択
We
だな
went with the upper color, brighter than the bottom one, but closer to what we wanted in tone. A matte finish can look a bit whitish, but it gives off a calm, balanced vibe overall. Now that we've made it this far, I think I've finally relaxed a bit. I'm actually enjoying the painting process. Now that we've made it this far, I think I've finally relaxed a bit. I'm actually enjoying the painting process.
一応今日で大工の創作が終わりです。明日からクロス屋さんが入りますので、綺麗に仕上げてくれると思います。またね、クロス屋さんにバトンタッチします。
This is what the wall looked like after we peeled off the old wallpaper. In this room, the new wallpaper is already up, but you can clearly see the unevenness in the wall. We had already told the client not to expect a perfect wallpaper finish in this room. But even we didn't realize how bad the existing surface was.
膨れがある。中から膨れとるで。どうしてもなるわな。わかる？
膨れてくるの。
This wallpaper job is going to turn out worse than we expected.
乾いてる？クロス屋さんはパテ打った時は平らやったんや。だからパテは問題なかったんや。
Over time, bumps in wallpaper do settle somewhat, but it's hard to say in this case.
いやでもこれはどうだろうか。
I don't want to brush it off with, that's just how remodeling is. But sometimes reality forces you to leave it at that.
パテ一日置いて明日こすってから貼ろうかっていうことにもなれない。時間を置くこともできない。
There's the owner's viewpoint, the worker's viewpoint, and the client's viewpoint.
これはやっぱ難しいよね。
Of course, it's ideal if everyone's satisfied. But if someone has to give up or put up with something, that's a painful reality. After discussing with the client, we decided to switch to a patterned wallpaper that would help hide the wall's uneven surface. The wallpaper installation took about a day and a half.
やっぱ家が悪いからって言ったらそれまでやる。お金にならんことやってかわへんな。こういう時代や。
Tradespeople now are expected to finish everything in one day, so it's getting harder to do things right. It's a long story, but Japan is currently facing a serious shortage of skilled workers.
ちょっと良くなったね。
We spent a lot of time repairing things you can't see, so we had to lower the priority of the finish work. Both the client and I agreed on this, but when you think of everything that led up to it, it's still a bit bittersweet. The client kindly treated us to coffee and snacks every day during breaks. Normally, fixing the wallpaper would be the wallpaper guy's job, but for various reasons. I stayed late this day, trying to touch up and make it look even just a little bit better. Switching the wallpaper turned out to be the right call. The bumps in the wall are now hardly noticeable. We had to make a lot of changes due to termite damage and the unique structure of the steel frame house. I'm sure the client struggled with many decisions too. The original Japanese style room was already nice, but they turned it into a more Western style space for their grandchild. The window trim paint and the interior window color matched beautifully in the end. In hindsight, we probably could have left the closet and ceiling intact and still achieved a similar look. The floor damage too. If we just patched it up quickly, we might have kept the budget much lower. The scope of the work grew, but now the client can live in the space with peace of mind. Before, the renovation, demolition work, subfloor repairs, flooring and surface protection, ceiling framing, wall framing, completion. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe to the channel.